Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a very special meeting of the Glendale City Council, June 21st, 2019. May we have the roll call?
Council members Agajanian.
Present.
Devine.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the June 21, 2019 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Wednesday, June 19, 2019 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And what is the first item?
Mr. Mayor and Council, before you is City Manager and City Attorney regarding discussion of appointment to fill the vacancy of City Council created by resignation of former Council member Zareh Sinanyan. 1A is a motion to appoint an individual to fill council vacancy. B is a motion directing staff regarding filling the council vacancy. Mr. Mayor and Council, I should also add that this item pertains to me. At this point in the meeting, I will recuse myself from any further portions of this meeting and turn the rest of the meeting over to Mr. Ajemian.
Thank you. And how many speaker cards do we have, Mr. Ajemian?
Currently, we have 13.
Okay, can you bring those forward?
Sure.
I have just a few introductory remarks. If my council will indulge me. First, I want to thank, obviously we're here to pick the council person seat vacated by Mr. Sinanyan. I would like to thank everyone who has submitted interest in this position. We had perhaps 45 names submitted. I know that it's not an easy thing to put your name out there before the community and your friends and your colleagues to indicate a desire to serve the city by filling this seat. I would like to say that I am very overwhelmed at the number of individuals expressing their interest in this seat. Let's keep in mind that the person appointed to this seat will hold it until March of 2020, at which point the seat will go up for election. So if you are one of the 44 applicants who were not selected, you perhaps may be interested in running in March of 2020. This is not a position, I assure you, that any one of us on the City Council or at the staff level wanted to be in. Our former councilman's departure was sudden, it was unforewarned, and it was surprising. Had we been able to dictate or to work out a timeline, I think it would have been a little bit different than what we have today. Nonetheless, I'd like to turn it just briefly over to our city attorney to frame the reason we're here, the reason we're holding this meeting, and the procedures which we are obligated to follow. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you stated, the reason we're here is to consider filling the vacancy created by former Councilmember Sinanyan's resignation. The charter provides that the council has 30 days from the date of the resignation to fill that position or fill that vacancy by appointment. And if the council does not make an appointment within that 30-day period, the council will be required to call a special election, which must be held no later than 120 days from the call of that special election. At the June 11th council meeting, council provided direction for me to accept statements of interest from interested individuals interested in filling the vacancy, the council also obviously called for this meeting to be held to make that decision. We received 45 statements of interest from interested individuals. The requirements to be appointed to fill the vacancy are that you be a resident, United States citizen, at least 18 years of age, and a registered voter in Glendale. We have verified since today 44 of the 45 persons who submitted statements of interest, registered voters in Glendale. I know that 45th individual is trying to clarify his voter registration status as well. But that's the information that's before you. The statements of interest were provided to you in your agenda packet on this item, as well as posted on the city's website. At the conclusion of receiving public comments, Mr. Mayor, members of council, council can deliberate and make a decision on appointment. At such time as the council calls for the vote, if there's more than one nominee, then the council will vote by indicating their candidate of choice, as opposed to a yes/no vote on each candidate, unless the council chooses to have a different voting procedure. The required vote to approve the filling of the vacancy is a majority vote of the council, or the majority vote of the remaining members of the council. So that's 3 votes to appoint a candidate to fill the vacancy. With that, I turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
So, colleagues, what I would like to propose is that we hear from the public, and that I give each and every one of you a chance to perhaps explain or make a statement on your principles, on your thought process, and your general reasoning as to your analysis of the candidates and your decision. It's not required, but I will open that up to you before we get into the nomination process of putting names in. Let us begin. And I'm going to, let's see, are we up to 15, perhaps? Okay, I'm going to permit 2 minutes for each speaker.
Are you cutting off access for cards at this time, Mr. Mayor? Or are you...
Does anyone have a card or an interest in speaking? If you do, please submit it now, because I'm determining how long to let each person speak. Okay, so submit your card now or forever hold your peace. 2 minutes then. I will start with Delilah Shabazian. Mr. Mohill, time out. You are submitting a card now?
Yes. But I'm not.
Are you doing that just to irritate me?
Not to irritate you. It's good. It's a good comment.
Okay. Is there anyone else who has a card or expresses an interest to speak? That means anyone in this room. Okay. So let's not take any more speaker cards. First speaker is Delilah Shabazian.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and members of City Council, good morning to you all. My name is Delilah Shabazian, and today I speak on behalf of the Southern California Armenian Democrats. On behalf of the hundreds of our members who call Glendale home, we strongly believe that the Glendale residents, your constituents, should have the opportunity to take part and express their wishes towards the election of the vacant seat on the council. We value others' opinions and find that special election is the only way this process can continue in a healthy and truly democratic way. With that being said, SCAD would also like to extend a congratulations to Honorable Zareh Sinanyan for his new position as High Commissioner of Diaspora Affairs under the Office of the Prime Minister of Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ara Hatamian.
Good morning, Council, and thank you for this opportunity. Last time that I was here, I was assigned as a commissioner for the City of Glendale, where I served my full term, and Mr. Dave Weaver reappointed me. When I woke up today morning, my wife said, just stick to your writing and you'll be fine. But I can see myself, I'm already veering off my written script that I have. I guess I'm here just to express my concerns in regards to the 2020 election. If there's a candidate that's appointed to this position, it should not be a platform for them in running in 2020. That would be an unfair advantage, and I think it will undermine the election process. Furthermore, I also believe that if the council has a go-to person in circumstances such as this, where that individual has stepped in under these circumstances before for the council, I think it also undermines this process a little bit, because having 45 applicants just shows how healthy this process has been and how objective it's been. And if you have an individual that you continually appoint for circumstances such as this, it may have a chilling effect in the future. And I think that will downplay this process. There's a lot of rumors and things of that nature as to who the 2 top candidates are. And the 2 top candidates, to me, pose a certain risk factor that may outweigh the benefits. I believe that to have a neutral serving in this position would serve the council much better because, A, you won't run into the risk of having that individual run in 2020, nor will you have a go-to person that the council continually appoints in circumstances such as this, which may have a chilling effect in the future of people applying. People are genuinely here applying for this position. They are going to come up here and talk. And you're right, Mr. Mayor, it's not an easy process, especially when you hear the rumors that there are two top candidates. But I do believe those two top candidates do pose a sort of a chilling effect on this healthy government that you have already created. So I thank you for this process, this objective process, and I ask you to continue this objectivity. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie Reed.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. My name is Annie Reed, and I want to talk about what I do actually for a living, and that is teach. I am a professor of law. I teach constitutional law and civil rights at Los Angeles Valley College, as well as being an administrator. And the lesson that I teach my students, we talk about democracy, and to talk about democracy is easy. To actually participate in democracy is not as easy. So one of the first lessons that I teach my students, whether they're online or face-to-face, is all about the federal government and how people can be involved, all about the state government and how people can get involved. But what really has an impact on people's lives, in my opinion, day to day, is the local government and how to get involved. So I challenge my students, as I am challenging myself today, to get involved in participatory government. And that is one of the reasons I came in person to the city attorney's office and handed in my application. That is one of the reasons that when I talk about walking the walk, I don't just show a picture on a screen about Sacramento. I can experience that because I've walked with students when the streets have been closed down by law enforcement on the state March on March that we talked to our legislators with students. I've walked the walk literally and figuratively. And so today I applied for this because I'm interested in serving my city that my husband and I have lived here for 15 years and love this city. And I appreciate the process. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Leonard Manukian.
Good morning. Honorable Mayor Najarian and members of the City Council. I'm Leonard Manukian, and I've applied for this temporary appointment. Today, I find myself facing a dilemma. On the one hand, I sincerely believe that I possess the qualities required for the seat on that dais. On the other hand, I think that the only appropriate way to fill the council member Sinanyan's vacated seat is by a special election. The only argument for appointing a temporary member to the council is the cost of a special election. But what constitutes a high cost is a matter of perspective. A few weeks ago, all of us gathered outside this very building to remember and celebrate the men and women who sacrificed all in order to preserve our democracy. Today, we are here discussing its economically feasible cost and how to address it. Please, let Glendale not be the city that knows the price of a thing, but not its value. Let the people of Glendale choose their own leadership as they were meant to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Koshland.
Good morning, Council. My name is Robert Koshland. I am 51 years old. I've been a resident of Glendale since 2013. I live in the Harris House, which is Historic Resource number 110. It's been recently painted. I know that's been a question for some time, so finally got to that. And I wanted to express my interest in this open position. Much of my interest comes from my love of this city and participation in activities in the city. In fact, when I moved here, I ended up, by chance, riding on the last Rose Parade float that the city had in 2014. In 2016, my home was featured as part of a walking tour by the Historic Society. In 2017, it was open to the public, and we toured almost 500 people through the house. My details are in my statement of interest. I currently do consulting. I provide political marketing consulting for candidates across the country. I also do expert witness work on copyright infringement cases. And while I haven't held a public office before, I did serve as president of a homeowners association for 8 years, where I did learn the fine art of balancing residents' wants and needs with insufficient resources and a general unwillingness to raise additional resources. And that was pretty much an ongoing art, which I did for 8 years. So anyway, in closing, thank you for the opportunity to address the council, and thank you.
Thank you. Christy Lamb.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and Council, for having us this morning. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Christy Lamb. I'm a resident of Glendale, new to California as of 4 years ago. I'm hearkening back to what Annie said when she got up here as a teacher, because my story kind of begins in the 8th grade when my geography teacher suggested that we think globally and act locally. And that's something that I've carried with me through my entire career so far, having spent 2 years in AmeriCorps after college, teaching after-school programs to youth. I studied media arts and design in school so that I could learn how to create messages and stories that would influence our culture. I worked in independent film and the nonprofit sector for about 10 years in New York. And when we moved to Los Angeles, I worked in entertainment. I found myself at a crossroads in my own career. I had a film that won the jury award at South by Southwest, and I had a new baby. And so what I did with my thread of experience is I started a nonprofit here in Glendale called Moms in Film. It's now a national nonprofit. We operate in 7 states across the country. We popped up free childcare at Sundance for 2 years in a row, and at South by for the year before that. We're lobbying for childcare. We've been to Sacramento. We've been to DC. And I found a lot of community here in Glendale along that journey. I incubated Moms in Film at Collab and Play, which was a Glendale business, is a Glendale business. They were our childcare partners and vetted all the providers and helped us with scheduling and insurance in all of our iterations of care. So I'm very interested in parity. I'm interested in nonpartisan issues that we can prove models in Los Angeles. And I've seen many of you at many of our events here in Glendale already. So I appreciate your outreach to the citizens of the city. To participate in this special temporary role would be an honor. And I'd just be excited to be here and listen to everyone's propositions. So thank you.
Thank you. Charles Wren.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members, and fellow residents. My name is Charles Wren, and I'm a candidate for the vacancy here before us. I'd like to share with you a little story about what brings me here today to put myself up for this candidacy. Over 8 years ago, a good friend of mine and I started a nonprofit. Now, the basic role of this nonprofit was to provide programs and services for the community. And its main fundraiser was an annual street festival. It was a 2-day event, and in our first year, welcomed 20,000 local residents to enjoy the experience. Now, my role in this organization was as community director. So my role was to implement and develop strategy to make sure the community was on board and aware of the method and the mission behind the nonprofit. This involved knocking door to door within a few block radius of our festival, getting petitions signed, handing out flyers, and answering questions directly face-to-face with the residents. It also involved preparing presentations for our local city council and neighborhood council. And through the few years I was involved with this festival, it really showed me at heart what personal skills I have to communicate with the community, but also make sure that they're heard and just not spoken to. and I think that these skills would be relevant for the position before us here today, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Karen Kwok?
Hi, I prepared a 4-minute speech that shows off my fancy education, but since I have only 2 minutes, I'll give you a plain English short version. Okay, first of all, thank you for opening this process to the public. And I know that whatever you decide, you'll hear howls of protest from some groups of people shouting that it was unfair. So the easiest thing to do might be to appoint someone who already served in the past. But Glendale needs someone who can shape the right future for us. For example, there's an upcoming vote on Grayson. And I love these new ideas about solar that I've been hearing. And actually, I might have been one of the people who to talk about solar before you. But this is an example of the ideas that we need to shape the future, which don't seem to have been presented in the past. So I would much rather see the right person to shape our future instead of reaching back to the past. Also, several people have talked about not allowing the interim appointee to run the next election. That I respectfully disagree, although I do recognize the points on their side, because I've spent some time talking to legislators at the local, state, and federal level and their aides, and I've always noticed that you have a lot more leverage with people who want to run again or who want to run for the future. So someone who has a vested interest in running in the future will be more responsive to the people of Glendale. And as there was a rumor, and I feel sure that Mike Mulhill would be proud to own that he also reported this, that the council already seems to have certain preferred candidates in mind. And so I honestly think that nothing that I say or anyone else says is going to matter. Okay, so why am I here? There are 2 points. To quote my favorite line from To Kill a Mockingbird, simply because we're elect 100 years before we were born is no reason for us not to try. And by us, I don't mean people like me who are short, female, and Asian. I mean people who grew up in public housing, people who rent their apartments, like the majority of the city, and people who take public transit. Like your transit proposal earlier this week, I had this distinct feeling that very few people here actually take transit on a regular basis, and I could provide insight on that point. Okay, and the other point is that, as I mentioned earlier, you are completely welcome to appoint me to the Metropolitan Water District seat, because that is an appointed position, and I would gladly take it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Astorian.
Mayor Najarian, members of the City Council, and staff. My name is Greg Astorian. My story will be that of the voter, laconic and not loquacious. I am here today because I am a potential candidate for this City Council seat that will be available in the general election. In my opinion, it will be totally unfair to appoint anybody that will take this mini incumbency and use it to their advantage when they will run at the general election. The deleterious thing to do, the disadvantaged thing to do, is to appoint somebody that wants to run. You got a list of 45 people, 4 of them that I could count publicly said that they are not interested in running. And you may know of a name or two that the name is not in the list that has told you that will not run. And I would encourage you to consider the names that have stated to you that will not run for the upcoming election. The most advantageous thing to do, Mr. Mayor, the most propitious thing to do is to leave the fate of this seat in the hands of the Glendale voters, the final arbiter. The ones that voted you in, the ones that no doubtly will vote the new councilman when the general election comes to. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Johnson.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff. My name is Danielle Johnson, and I would like to express interest in the open city council position being vacated. I've heard a lot of different things today that I was not anticipating on hearing when I first put in my statement of interest. However, it does not deter me from still being interested in the open position. I've been a part of Glendale's vast community through my residency as well as my contribution as a planning committee member for Glendale Tech Week, as well as the work that I've contributed at the historic YWCA Glendale as a site director and camp coordinator for Camp Rosie. My background in technology has led me to the esteemed role of executive board member for Girls in Tech Los Angeles, a local chapter of the global organization Girls in Tech, and I'm also the founder of my own digital marketing agency based out of Glendale. With my experience, I've been able to work closely with members of my community who serve this community as service providers, brick and mortars, and entrepreneurs, and it's with this experience that I've been exposed to the needs of my fellow citizens. As of lately, I've been able to have such a wonderful experience in the city of Glendale, seeing how the city works in and out and seeing the different things that we need as a city. And I feel that with my unique opportunity working with Glendale Community College to improve their relations as it pertains to programming and technology, that I've been able to see a lot of different aspects of what Glendale would need from a different perspective that may not be addressed at this moment. I take so much pride in being involved in Glendale's tech initiatives as well as the community efforts, and that's why I feel that I'm a qualified candidate for this position. I want to be more involved in making decisions that shape our city's future. Glendale is an amazing city with great culture focused on improvement, vision, and excellence, and with my contribution, I know that the city will thrive. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for your consideration for this position.
Thank you. Juan de la Cruz.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and speak today. It was a little trek from downtown where I work. I work for the YMCA of Metropolitan Los Angeles. I'm the Senior Vice President of Community Development there. I've been there for 4 years, and a lot of my work there is managing a $100 million organization to provide services and strategic partnerships for the communities in 26 communities throughout LA County. I live here in Glendale. I moved in August of 2016, 3205 Linda Vista Road near Chevy Chase Country Club. And I live there with my wife. My wife is also a nonprofit executive that works for Youth Policy Institute that combats poverty throughout the state of California. I live there with my 2 boys and my stepdaughter. We've been there and we've been very immersed in the education here and the school district as well. I come here as one of the 44 plus applicants that for this vacancy. I applaud the City Council. I know this wasn't an easy decision to make to appoint someone in such a short term. That's part of democracy, and I applaud you for doing your job in the democratic process. I've worked for several organizations. The longest tenure was LA Unified School District. My last tenure there was working as chief of staff, working with superintendents and local school board members with a $1 billion budget and working throughout the county with local, state, and federal governments. My experience comes with working with local, state, federal governments. But I think part of what I bring to the table as a potential candidate is that in the past where I lived in Southgate, I was a planning commissioner, and I currently serve as a trustee for the State Bar Board of Trustees, appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and speak, and I know you have a hard decision to make at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Brotman.
Good morning. My name is Dan Brotman. I'm an adjunct professor of economics at Glendale College, an environmental activist, and a proud member of the Glendale community. It may seem as if the decision before you today is relatively low stakes. After all, the person you select will sit on the dais for less than 9 months. A caretaker, perhaps. In fact, this is a momentous decision. It's momentous because the person you select today will be voting on an issue that will determine the reputation of Glendale and the fate of those who live and work here for generations. That issue is the question of whether Glendale will be the last place in California to build a gas power plant. Glendale has the opportunity to look forward, to recognize the magnitude of the looming climate emergency, to embrace the many new clean energy technologies that now make it possible, even economically smart, to go in a new direction. Glendale can choose to be a leader to demonstrate the value it places on its youth, who are increasingly petrified by the future they face if we continue with business as usual. Or it can be left behind, the last gasp of the fossil fuel era. There will surely be many other important decisions that come before the council over the next 9 months. Questions about how to deal with affordable housing crisis, skyrocketing rents, questions on our homeless population, questions on density, on the protection of historic resources, on traffic, parking, public transportation, pedestrian and bicycle safety, the Shoal Canyon landfill, and many, many other issues. So I hope you'll choose someone who will operate in the best interests of Glendalians, young and old, present and future, and who will embody our best values, who will cement our reputation as a great city that we can be proud of. Not an easy decision. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Samuel Hovhannissian.
Dear Mayor Najarian, dear council member, dear Glendale residents, my name is Samuel Hovhannissian and I moved to Glendale 8 years ago. So I was spending my last days reading hundreds of statements back in 2013, 17, 19 to understand what were the problems that Glendale was facing. So, and I was surprised. The problems were all the same. And living in the city, I've seen great council. You know, I interviewed even Frank Quintero before in 2012, I guess. And so it's kind of, my question was like, how do you see a great council working for the city, and you see with your eyes because you live in the city, and the other hand, you see the same questions that are, you know, and here today, right now, before me, rising with like the same thing, like housing, you know, I don't want to repeat. But, so I thought maybe we have to come in from a different approach. Maybe our residents who raise these questions, they just want to be happy. It's just they don't know how to approach these things differently. Like, for instance, I was, actually it was like 3 hours in 2013, you were discussing like how to lower crime or traffic. And I think lots of people said we need more police force on the streets. Well, what I think is we need to know each other. If community knows each other and loves each other, if we have more compassion, more caring towards each other, then it will be safer on the streets. And I'm not just doing, you know, I'm not just speaking. I spoke with my friend who can give us a, let's say, we can tackle this through technology. Like one of my friends, he can give us for free. I don't want to burden the city with more expenses, but one of my friends, he developed a mobile app that helps residents to share information instantly. And that way they can stay in touch, report even like street sweeping. If they need sweeping, they can make a photo and everyone will see, and it will be easier for us not to go there and see with our eyes. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is I can bring lots of examples, but my experience is having a PhD in economics, and I've traveled to over 45 countries, lived in France and Portugal before moving to States. And am I out of time?
You're out of time.
I'm
if you'd like to conclude it with a very nice
I
sentence,
will just close it. Yes.
Great.
So I remember, I never thought I will be standing right here, but I remember on the TV, I asked you a question, Mayor. I said, how do you envision Glendale in years? And you said, I envision more people walking and I see more museums. Well, I do agree with that, and I want to add more happy people walking on the streets.
Thank you.
And so I believe great leaders should have energy and passion. The knowledge will come. So thank you all. And
thank you, Mr. Hovhannissian. Rafi Krikorian.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members and staff. My name is Rafi Krikorian. I guess you could say I grew up in Glendale. I had to start from the bottom. I had to learn everything, all my skills, including language, the power of word, and worked my way up. All this time I've been improving myself, my mind, my life, my lifestyle, and it's been about me to this point. But I would like to offer my skills, my life skills, my experience, business experience, to City of Glendale. I'd like to help my fellow Glendale residents. I'd like to improve my life along with everybody, all individuals living in Glendale. So I would like to make that transition. I'm here to offer myself. Okay. My passions are in making this city move in a more pragmatic, passionate way. We've been bogged down to a certain degree. I see a lot of times when we have issues here, people get a little bit confused. It gets confusing, but we need people that have a clear mind that will see the goal at the end, not get lost in the details. And that's what I'd like to offer. I'd like to offer a fresh eye, fresh energy that can keep this thing moving. My passion, again, is also in environmental improvement. I see no reason why we can't have a solar on every roof. Now, a lot of people argue that solar is really, the value of solar is minimal. It doesn't offer much. But there are people right now in rural areas that have no power at all. They're off the grid, and they have a house, and they can actually function in that house completely without being attached to the grid. So that proves to me that we can take this a long way. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mike Mohill. No, there was another card placed behind yours. I'm going to call Mike Mohill next.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Najarian. I wanted to be last, so almost, okay? If you do not choose Mr. Frank Quintero, I would like to say this, that the candidates who are running for this position, they have great background, great education, good citizens. I would have a difficult position to choose. But a couple of things that stood out when the candidate did come up here to speak bothered me. And please give me permission to talk about that. Number one, I felt it was very offensive when the one person who came up here and said, well, I'm a Democrat, and we should have basically Democrats on city council. Well, the issue is local government is nonpartisan. It's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's not independent. If you want that, go to the state or the federal level. So please don't make that statement. I hate when people make that statement. Another thing is, it's nice to know that people belong to a lot of civic organizations. We need people to be volunteers. But what really concerns me is, have these people who belong to these wonderful organizations and who are involved, being presidents, have they ever come before the city council and talk about a tough issue that is controversial, that not everybody agrees on? That takes a lot of what they call chutzpah. I want to see that candidate run for city council. Now, there are some people who have done that, and I may not agree with that person, but at least they took the energy to come before the city council and talk about a controversial point. Okay? I do agree that the candidate who is running right now and should win should not run again in 2020. It is an advantage to that person. I like a candidate who is more than just one issue. Not just one issue. Be variety. And finally, Again, I like to congratulate all the candidates who took the time, energy, and money. It's not easy. I've done it before. What surprised me the most is when I wrote my letter the other day, I didn't know how many people were actually running, and I didn't know their background till after I wrote my article. And I was amazed how wonderful these people are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohel. The last card, Zanku Armenian.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I want to thank you for this opportunity to submit my qualifications for your consideration today. Just like you, I've had the pleasure of working with former council member Sinanyan as his appointee to the CDBG Advisory Committee, as you all know, and his absence will indeed be felt. Council member Sinanyan was very active in the community, and while his new position will be a tremendous gain for Armenia, filling his shoes in Glendale will be a big task for anyone. This is why I submitted my interest and credentials for your consideration, as I wish to continue what Mr. Sinanyan started to the end of his term. However, as I mentioned in my statement of interest, if appointed, it is not my intention to run in March 2020, just to see his term completed to its end. Through my work experience, I have a track record working with the city and county governments throughout Southern and Central California, working directly with them, as well as through the various local government associations, such as the Southern California Association of Governments, League of California Cities, Independent Cities Associations, and others. I also have experience with various government agencies and working with business and community leaders, as being on the board of organizations like the LA County Business Federation, the Southern California Leadership Council, working with LABC, working with Metro on their various clean energy projects. I would also like to bring my years of experience working in the city as a former chair of the GWP Commission, appointed by you, Mr. Mayor, currently as a CDBG Commissioner. I'm also on vice chair of the Glendale College Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, appointed by the Board of Trustees. And for many, many years, I've been on the board of the Ross Moines Mountain Homeowners Association, working on historic districting and other vital issues essential to preserving the quality of life of our wonderful community. I hope I can earn your confidence for this appointment, and it would be an honor to work with each of you and learn from you and serve the community. Whatever your decision, I hope it will be guided by the principle of what is best for our community and ensuring the person selected can carry out Mr. Sinanyan's term in a manner that would be consistent with the positive tone and accomplishments. In that spirit, finally, I would offer that if appointed, and I don't know if this would be allowable, but I would forego any compensation. If that is not allowed, if Mr. Garcia says that is not allowed, I would commit to donating those funds earned to the many nonprofit organizations in our city that I've come to know through CDBG who do great work, particularly dealing with the homeless issue and at-risk youth. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. I do not have any other cards. Are there any other cards that fell under the table or between the
cards,
cracks
Mayor.
there? Okay. Before we actually start the nomination process, I, at this time, invite my colleagues to make any statements that they would like to make before the public. May I start from my left this time, Mr. Carpenter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Never a dull moment on this council, isn't it? Well, I want to thank everyone who participated in this process and submitted their applications. We had so many people who are qualified based on their application that they submitted. I wish we had more time to go through these applications because we received it a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago. And for me, if it was up to me, I would not make a decision today to be able to review all the applications thoroughly. This council has done everything democratic. The process is really working because we opened it to public, unlike in the past I was only open to former mayors or former elected officials. So as far as the democratic process, I think we are really going out our way to make sure that the democratic process is protected. There were a few points mentioned that shaping the future. Within 5 or 6 months, no council member, no single council member can shape the future of this city. Everything you want to do, you need 2 votes, in some cases 4 votes. I'm totally against, my principles being that I'm totally against appointing to an elected position. I think the people should decide who will take that seat. But due to circumstances and the short period of time between, if you want to hold a special election from November to March is only 3 months, and the cost of the elections is so high, it's just a fiscally responsible thing to do to go through this process. And the voters reserve the right to choose whoever they want in March of 2020. So we're not taking that right away for 2.5 years or so. We heard so many, there were so many statements or rumors floating around about a former council member already being decided. There's no such a thing. That's why we have this process. It's an open process. Nothing has been decided. I have few favorites. I don't know how am I going to go about it. That's why I wanted to have a little bit more time. And if there is still a chance to have more time, I would like to have that. And because the issue that we have, if Councilmember Sinanyan stayed another 3 months, we didn't have to go through this process. We could have kept that seat open until next year. So I asked this question. I want to ask again publicly if there is a way to only appoint for 3 months, and after that keep that seat vacant and open for the voters to decide. So within 3 months, nothing will happen. No future will be shaped. It will not, swing one way or the other. And all these rumors about the decisions already made behind closed doors, Mr. Mohill, it will go away. I think these are really wrong things to do for this community, to spread this kind of rumors. My job is to, if I have to appoint, my job is to appoint someone that I know and I trust that will do the right thing for the city. It's not, and we have only one choice. So the rest, I don't want to come out like I didn't trust you or you're not qualified. This is not a job application. It's not that you're trying to become a CEO of a tech company or CEO of a manufacturing company, that you have to have certain credentials. This job is open to everyone. That's why every person in this city can participate. So my job, my decision will be based on the person that I know and I trust that can do the right thing for next few months and move this city forward. That's the most important thing. We have so many important decisions coming, and a single issue candidate will never do the right job. We have the Grayson coming, we have the landfill, biogas, we have the franchising, the trash, we have the historic district issues, we have South Glendale community plan, we have East and West community plans. We have so many heavy loaded projects coming in next few months. So I would want to see somebody that knows about these issues, first of all, because I may be a good person, but I may not know all the issues, or some of the issues at least. My decision will be based on the person that knows about these issues and wants to do the right thing for next few months. So the city will move forward. Again, it's very important to move this city forward because our residents are depending on it, and I was elected to do that, to protect the residents of the city, to improve the quality of life. So I think I'm going to stop here, Mr. Mayor, and yield to my colleagues and see what else they have to say and go from there.
Do you have any comments to make?
Thank you all. Those who come forward, they spoke here a few minutes ago, and all those who filled up the applications. This is not an easy decision because we have to pick up one person. There are 45 basically those who came forward to be a council member for 9 months or 8 months, and with them, their families are associated with this. So we have to disappoint at least 2,000 people and pick up one person. So I'm sorry, that's the way this works, so there's no other way to do it. The reason I agreed to go along with this process was I was told that the cost of doing the special election at this time will be $1,300,000.
The estimate we have is $1.1 million.
Okay, so it's correct then. 1.1, I'm sorry. 1.5, approximately it's the same thing. I mean, it's over $1 million, and that's too much, especially 9 months later or 8 months later, we have an election. This process should be, I mean, it should not be a platform for somebody who wants to run. So if we pick up one person here, I'm hoping that person will not run. That's my hope, and that's why whoever comes forward will respect that, because otherwise one person will have advantage over all those who are going to run in March of 2020. So based on that, I looked through those who came forward, they spoke to me, and I reviewed some of these applications. So I will decide such that the person, hoping that the person will not run, because this is very important not to have advantage over the other candidates. That will be my principle to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agajanian. Ms. Devine.
First, I want to thank all of you that are here today and all the ones on the list that have applied for this position. I commend all of you because of your concern for the community and your willingness to serve the residents of our great city. When I voted to appoint the interim for this position, instead of holding a special election, of course, I did so with the intent of saving the city the $1 million that it would cost for an election, a special election. At the same time, with the intent of selecting someone that would not be running in the 2020 election and would have the qualifications to fairly and properly represent and make difficult decisions coming forward for our residents during this short term. So it's not an easy, hasn't been an easy decision. It's been very difficult. So in terms of not running in the 2020 election, I believe this is an essential requirement to assure that the candidates who do run in 2020 have a level playing field and that we have a fair and democratic election process. Now, in terms of qualifications, I looked at 4 elements of the qualifications: skills, knowledge, abilities, and experience. After perusing the applications, I think all of the candidates have the skills and the abilities. I found that many have 3 qualifications. They also have the knowledge of current issues that we'll be facing in this interim time. But I found that the deciding factor is going to be the experience of making difficult decisions, the experience of knowing all of the issues and knowing or having the ability to make these difficult decisions. So those are the factors that are going to be guiding my decision this morning. And again, I sincerely thank everyone, all of you, who are here today and who have applied for this, because I think that I'm agreeing with Mr. Mulhill. It's a wonderful group of people a great group of applicants, and I thank all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Devine. And I, too, want to reiterate the thanks that we have for all the applicants. And after reading through your resumes and statements of qualifications, it's clear that we've got such a incredible pool of talent in these 45 applicants. Each one's perhaps slightly different than the other, but I could envision each and every one of you at some point helping guide the city, whether from the dais or through some other position in the city framework. So thank you very much, and thank you to those that have weighed in, although not officially being candidates. The young lady from SCAD, Mr. Mohill, thank you. And anyone else, and everyone else who took the time to reach out and contact me about their thoughts on who would or would not be a good council member. My criteria has been fairly consistent since this issue came up just a few weeks ago. The first is that my nomination will be for someone who is not a likely candidate in March. And when I say not a likely candidate, we cannot impose the prohibition of anyone who is selected today to be a candidate. That simply can't be done. But the point is that, and Ms. Devine and all my colleagues touched on it, that it be a fair playing field for all those who choose to run in November. The mantle of incumbency is a strong force that may very well be all that a candidate needs to succeed in the March election. So that is a primary principle for me, and that is of fairness. My second criterion is that the person nominated understands Glendale, and that means understands our different people, groups, neighborhoods, coalitions, nonprofits. They understand the people of this city. The third criteria is that someone who is familiar with our municipal organization, who understands what department head you need to reach and contact, and how to shepherd a thought or get an issue or agenda item to its success. This is only an 8-month seat, and it takes sometimes years for a council member to fully understand and appreciate what it takes to work in the city municipal framework. And I'm speaking on my own behalf. It took me a good 2 years to 3 years before I fully understood how all the components of this 1,700 or 1,600 member Glendale municipality operates. The fourth criteria is I want to nominate someone who will not be beholden to a particular council member, or who will appear to be beholden to a particular council member. We've only got 8 months, 7 months, and it cannot be a situation where everyone thinks that this particular candidate is Najarian's good buddy and they're going to vote together. That, I think, would spoil the process. My last criterion is that the nominee not be beholden to any particular group in the city, or who has such a clear agenda preset that it will subvert our deliberative process as a city council. We don't want to bring a ringer in for whatever issue that might be, whether it's the garbage contract, whether it's an Armenian museum, whether it's the power plant or the biogas or anything else that we do. the public has to believe that that person coming in is coming in with an open mind, is going to listen to all the facts before them, and in that short period of time, do what he thinks is best for the city without outside influences or pressure. Those are simply the criteria that I have in my mind, and that's the type of analysis that perhaps each one of us is describing in his or her own separate way, perhaps grouping it in different manners, but that's what I want to see. This is a 8-month seat, very short period of time. The elections will be in March, and we can get through this. That being said, Mr. City Attorney, am I free to make a nomination at this point?
Yes, sir, you are.
Based on my criteria, the candidate that rose to the top for me is former Mayor Frank Quintero. Are there any other nominations? Mr. Carpetcha.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to ask the city attorney the question I asked at the briefing about the 3 months period. The charter says that you have to appoint somebody to fill that position, but it doesn't say you cannot appoint somebody to fill that position for the 3 months, or you can have that 6 months to keep it vacant or open. I want to make sure that I ask this question again, because to me, appointing anyone for an elected position is a wrong thing, and we are pushed in this corner to do so at this time. But I want an answer.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Garpetian, the charter provides that in the event that the council appoints somebody to fill that vacancy, that person serves until the next municipal election, in this case, given the timing. So I believe that the only way to interpret that is to mean that the council cannot appoint someone and put a time limit on that appointment other than till the time of the next municipal election. So upon appointment, that person will serve until the March 2020 election.
Okay. Are we nominating now, or what are we doing?
At this point, there's one nomination on the table, and the nominations are open.
Do my colleagues have any other nominations? No? Okay. For me, as I mentioned, I had few favorites, and I'm going to categorize them and go from there. From the people who had their application submitted and mentioned that they're not going to run, I think Zanko Armenian has all the credentials to be on this seat for a few more months. From the people who...
I'm sorry, is that a nomination for Zanko Armenian?
I'm just making a statement at this time. As I said, I don't have one particular nominee right now. I want to mention who my top 3 were. And I don't know how this process is. Do we have to make one nomination, or can we have three? Because this has never happened before. I don't know if I cannot make a statement before I make a nomination, or how do I do that?
Let's ask the city attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you can make prefatory remarks prior to making a nomination, and I do believe multiple nominations can be made by a council member. At the end of the day, as I've noted in the staff report, if there's more than one nominee, then at the time of roll call, at the time each council member's name is called, that council member will have to name the individual that he or she votes to approve for the appointment.
Okay, so just a point of order. Multiple nominations can be made by the same council member?
I believe so, yes.
Mr. Garbage?
Yeah, I'm not making multiple nominations at this time. I'm just making a statement as to who my favorite candidates were between people that I know, and again, this was a short period of time. From the people that I know, there's a criteria to not to run for next election, but it's not a criteria that you can enforce, basically, because that's unconstitutional. I think between people that have an intention to run, I think Ardi Katakhan would have been a great candidate for this seat. And also for people who didn't submit their application, or they submitted and took it out, or I don't know what happened in between, was Albert Abkarian. I think that nomination was pulled, or that request was pulled, because of all the accusations and wrong rumors about him already being elected and and because he's a man of integrity and respect, he pulled his nomination. So put everything to damper Mr. Mohill. Put a damper on that idea. So with that, I see the votes are there already for Mr. Quintero. Mr. Quintero will do a great job. The one thing that you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, to be beholden to anyone, I hope that will happen, that Mr. Quintero would not be beholden to you because he served with you for, 8 to 12 years. And the relationship is there. I hope, and I'm sure Mr. Quintero is a great guy. I've known him for a long time. I have nothing against him. My idea was to have a new, we keep talking about the change and new stuff. That was my idea. As far as being beholden to anyone, I just hope that, I'm sure he will do a great job up here, but I just hope that will stick to everyone's mind on this dais for the next few months.
So let me just address the valid issue, the concern that Mr. Quintero in particular will be beholden to me. I haven't had more fights with any other council member on the dais than Mr. Quintero. We were diametrically opposed to important issues such as development downtown. We share nothing else in common, be that political parties, be that philosophical ideology, and if I felt for 1 minute that Mr. Quintero was going to be a ringer for me, I would not make his appointment.
And
it's a valid concern that you raise, and I just want to state that for the record.
One last thing, if we have criteria as far as skills, knowledge, ability, experience, if that was the deciding point, why even open it to the public? Because no one has that experience that Mr. Quintero has, or Mr. Weaver will have, or any of the elected former council members or former mayors will have, than the general public. If you open it to general public, I think that by saying that they have the experience up here, it just puts everyone in a disadvantage, which is a great, a valid point. We want someone who has the experience to do this job. But let's bear in mind that many of us who get elected, do not have that experience when we get elected. Of course, that's elected, not appointed, but just want to bring that up. But for the future, if that is the decision-making point, why open it to the public and go through this whole process? It's just, I don't think that's right either.
So I don't think anyone on council was aware of Mr. Quintero's official interest in this until the list came out Monday PM. Certainly there were some rumors of unofficial interest, but until the names came in. And plus, I'm not, in my list, the weighting of each one of those categories is fluid. They're not necessarily equal, or one is not necessarily greater than the other. So are there any other nominations? So we have one nomination. Is it necessary to do a roll call?
It is necessary to do a roll call, yes, sir. So with that, Mr. Ajemian can close the nominations and take roll unless there are any other nominations.
Let's consider the nominations closed. Roll call, Mr.
And if I may, because there's only one nomination, the nomination of Mr. Quintero, it can be a yes or no.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Devine?
Yes.
Garabetian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Is there any other business before us this morning?
There is no other business.
Again, thank you everyone for attending. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Artie cries, it's just not right.